My wife slept with multiple men while we were still married. But I stayed silent until I rebuilt my life and left her crying in the ruin she made. After 17 years, my wife cheated and pushed for an open marriage. I divorced her, and now she wants me back. I'm William, a 47-year-old man who was married to Victoria, a 42-year-old woman, for 17 years, though we only lived as a true couple for about 7 of those years. A decade ago, I caught Victoria cheating on me. She confessed that she had fallen out of love and wanted an open marriage. We had 2 sons together. Jake, our elder boy, was just a toddler, and Tommy was still an infant when this nightmare began. It was devastating for me. Victoria claimed that back-to-back pregnancies had taken a toll on her physical and mental well-being, so she needed to freshen up. Unfortunately, her way of relaxing was bringing different men into our bed. Divorce seemed complicated at that point with 2 little kids and my modest salary as a junior accountant at Henderson & Associates. I decided to let her do what she wanted while I moved upstairs in our split-level house in suburban Denver. We became co-parents to our children. It wasn't as smooth as it sounds. We separated with a lot of bitterness and harsh words, mostly from me because she had betrayed everything we'd built together. The house we'd bought from an elderly Korean couple had been designed with privacy in mind. The upstairs had its own entrance through the back, originally meant for their grown son. Now it became my refuge. Eventually, we got caught up in work and daily life. I moved on emotionally and mellowed out, focusing on being the best father I could be. But a few months ago, everything changed when I met Rebecca, a 35-year-old marketing coordinator at my firm. She was my junior, and we connected instantly. Bonding with Rebecca felt like the most natural thing that had happened to me in years. It wasn't romantic at first. We were just understanding colleagues who enjoyed spending time together after work, grabbing burgers at Tony's Diner or catching movies at the Paramount Theater. It was only last month that we shared our first kiss, and I felt something special about her that I thought I'd never experience again. Since then, Rebecca had been staying over at my place quite often, which became concerning because technically, Victoria was still my wife. We were still legally married after all these years of separation. That's when Victoria started getting weird. She began hanging around whenever Rebecca and I were together, asserting her authority like she was still my loving wife instead of the woman who had shattered our marriage a decade ago. I had to remind Victoria that we were separated and I could do whatever I wanted, just as she'd been doing for years with her revolving door of boyfriends. But describing what she was doing is difficult. Let me paint you a picture. One evening, Rebecca and I were having dinner in my kitchen, leftover meatloaf and mashed potatoes from the local Boston market. Victoria suddenly appeared and asked, "Can I join you guys?" It became a supremely awkward moment for both of us. Rebecca and I exchanged astonished glances as Victoria sat down with her plate without even waiting for an answer. We ate dinner sitting like strangers, forcing smiles at Victoria's stupid, forced conversation about the weather and local news. Our peaceful evening was ruined, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she was just trying to be friendly. Then there was another incident where she acted bossy, trying to impose her rights as my legal wife. Rebecca and I were upstairs watching The Shawshank Redemption on my old Samsung TV when Victoria barged in and demanded I come with her immediately. "What's the matter?" I asked, pausing the movie. "Your kids need you," she declared. "Tommy has a science project about the solar system due tomorrow, and you need to help him." I was astonished because we had clearly divided our parenting responsibilities years ago. I helped Jake with his homework and extracurricular activities, while she handled Tommy's schoolwork. "I've already done my part with Jake today," I told her firmly. "This is your responsibility." Victoria's face turned red with fury. "Is Tommy not your son too? Instead of helping him, you're up here lurking around like a deadbeat dad." This led to a full-blown argument between Victoria and me, with voices raised and accusations flying. Rebecca grew uncomfortable, excused herself politely, and left through the back stairs. After that incident, Rebecca told me she wouldn't be hanging out at my place anymore, though we could still meet at her apartment near downtown Denver. The situation infuriated me. Why should I compromise my life when I'd never interfered with hers? 4 years, Victoria had been living however she wanted, bringing various men, lawyers, construction workers, even a guitar instructor named Dylan, into our house. I had chosen to look the other way for the sake of stability and our children's well-being. Now that I'd found someone to truly connect with, Victoria was acting malicious and deliberately trying to sabotage my happiness. I confronted her the next day, and she claimed she wasn't bothered by my closeness with Rebecca. She refused to acknowledge her strange behavior and said I was overthinking everything. "If you continue interfering in my life," I warned her, I'll seriously consider filing for divorce." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she insisted she hadn't meant to disturb us. She claimed she was just anxious about Tommy's unfinished project and was swamped with her work at the dental office, so she had asked for help. I told her that wasn't asking for help, that was manipulation and gaslighting. Let me take you back 10 years to explain how we got to this point, because the details matter for understanding the depth of this betrayal. 4 months after Tommy's birth, Victoria started acting distant. She wouldn't let me come close physically, claiming she wasn't ready for intimacy. Pregnancy and breastfeeding had made her averse to physical contact, she said. I respected her decision completely, but she was also drifting apart emotionally, becoming cold and withdrawn. I suggested couples counseling with Dr. Martinez at the Denver Family Therapy Center, but Victoria shrugged it off, saying it was just postpartum adjustment and that she'd recover eventually. Nearly a year passed, and I finally lost patience. "We need to address the elephant in the room," I confronted her one evening after putting the boys to bed. "Either we go to therapy together, or you tell me the truth about what's really wrong." Victoria tried to gaslight the situation, claiming I was being insensitive and unreasonable, but I didn't let it slide this time. I dug for the truth, even going as far as checking her phone when she was in the shower. Most of her texts and emails had been deleted, but something felt off. I don't remember exactly how I got the clue, but one Saturday she claimed she was going shopping at Cherry Creek Mall with her girlfriends from work. Something in my gut told me to follow her. I trailed her silver Honda Civic and discovered the crushing truth: she was cheating with a young college student from the University of Colorado. I knocked on his apartment door in a complex near campus. A shirtless guy answered while Victoria sat on his couch in her lingerie, frantically trying to cover herself with a throw pillow. I grabbed that guy by his shirt collar and was about to punch his lights out when Victoria intervened, pleading with me to leave him alone. She cried that it wasn't his fault, he was just one of the guys she was hooking up with. One of the guys. Those words hit me like a freight train. She confessed to sleeping with multiple men over several months. The college kid standing in front of me had no idea she was married with 2 young children at home. We drove back to our house in complete silence, the weight of her betrayal crushing down on me. I did what any devastated husband would do, though not violence, as I'm not that kind of man. I called her parents in Phoenix and revealed the truth in front of everyone. I insisted on divorce and even hired attorney Robert Chen from a firm downtown. But as the legal proceedings progressed and Chen explained the harsh reality, it shook me to my core. There was no real advantage for me except financial loss and heartache. With the children being so young, they would need their mother primarily. At best, I could get joint custody, which would still be largely at Victoria's discretion. Colorado's no-fault divorce laws meant there was no moral consideration for her infidelity. I'd still have to pay alimony, and child support was unavoidable. Essentially, I'd maintain all the responsibilities of being a father while being at Victoria's mercy to spend meaningful time with my own children. Victoria was also against the divorce when she realized I was serious. Instead, she suggested we open our marriage and come back to each other whenever we wanted. I knew I never wanted her back romantically, but divorce was financially devastating at that point in my career. The only viable option was to separate within the same house and live as roommates and co-parents. Though Victoria liked to call it an open marriage, I considered our relationship a dead plant that just hadn't been buried yet. We were separated in every way that mattered. Over the past decade, Victoria has had numerous partners, though she claims nothing serious with any of them. I believe she had at least 3 relationships that were more than just physical. These men came to our house, she went hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park with them, took weekend trips to Vail and Aspen. It wasn't easy watching her get intimate with other men in what used to be our shared bedroom. Our split-level house had served our arrangement well. I took the upstairs guest bedroom, accessing it through the back entrance that led to a private staircase. The main floor had the living room, kitchen, master bedroom, and the converted storage room that became the boys' bedroom. Upstairs featured a large library-style area perfect for reading and my home office, plus a small deck overlooking our backyard. Since moving upstairs, I could see most of what happened downstairs, and sometimes I wished I could just close my eyes. But for my children's sake, I remained vigilant and involved in their daily lives. Initially, I also jumped into dating, meeting women at Starbucks and going to dinner at places like Olive Garden and Applebee's. But after a couple of months, it felt hollow and meaningless. These encounters were just distractions from the pain. Instead, I focused on rebuilding myself. I joined the Denver Athletic Club and worked on getting back in shape. I'd been a baseball player in college at Colorado State. I started playing in weekend softball leagues and joined a hiking group that organized solo adventures every couple of months in the Rockies. The rule was simple: no friends, spouses, or anyone you knew. You hiked with strangers, which created authentic connections. This continued for about 2 years before I scaled back to twice yearly. I had casual encounters here and there over the decade, but no emotional affairs and no long-term partners. I simply didn't feel that deep connection with anyone. But with Rebecca, everything was different. I felt genuinely happy around her, like I could trust love again. She represented hope for a real future beyond this strange arrangement I'd been living. That's when Victoria became the devil hunting me down, determined to destroy my chance at happiness. The situation was essentially forcing me to choose between Rebecca and my children, and I was struggling with that impossible decision. But after seeking therapy with Dr. Jennifer Walsh at the Denver Counseling Center, I gained clarity about what I truly wanted at this stage of my life. The therapist helped me realize that Jake and Tommy were entering their teenage years. Jake was 15, Tommy was 13. It would only be a few more years before they'd leave for college and start their own independent lives. Did it make sense to sacrifice my chance at happiness with Rebecca for such a short remaining period of active parenting? I had a completely transparent conversation with Rebecca about my feelings and intentions. I told her I wanted to be with her if she felt the same way, and that I could work out the family complications. Rebecca admitted she felt the same way about me but was hesitant because of my complex family dynamics. She simply didn't feel comfortable being around my legal wife, though she was fine with my sons being part of our life together. I can work this out, I assured her. I'll move out, and the boys can decide where they want to live. They're mature enough to make that decision and can split time between their mother's place and ours. Rebecca was supportive of this plan. Dr. Walsh suggested family counseling for Jake and Tommy, where they could be made aware of our true marital status in an age-appropriate way. When I told Victoria about the counseling sessions, she completely lost her mind. She accused me of being selfish and insane for dragging our children into this mess. She claimed I was ruining their lives by getting serious with Rebecca and that I should prioritize my family over my selfish desires. That's when I finally lost my temper after years of restraint. Really, Victoria? You're the one giving me lectures about family and moral responsibility? What happened to your ethics when you were sleeping with different men while our children were still babies crawling around in their cribs? I told her to back off and took the boys to Dr. Walsh's office. The counseling session went better than expected. Jake and Tommy received the information maturely and actually appreciated that we had stuck together for their sake all these years. They also agreed that I deserved to be happy for the rest of my life. When I told Victoria I would be filing for divorce, she acted shocked and started sobbing dramatically. I thought we decided never to get divorced and to stay together forever. Now that you've found this woman, you're abandoning your family to be with her. I've met plenty of men who wanted to marry me over the years, but I never traded my marriage for them. Stop trying to guilt-trip me, I replied firmly. This manipulation isn't helping anyone. I told her to sign the papers when they arrived. I'd continue paying for the boys' education through college, she could keep the house and her car as part of the alimony settlement, and I'd be moving out. I was choosing my happiness over money because now, finally, I could afford it. Back then, I couldn't. Victoria cried and tried every manipulation tactic in her playbook to talk me out of the divorce. She even suggested I could move out and live with Rebecca while staying legally married to her. I love Rebecca, I told her plainly, and I don't want her labeled as my mistress. I know you'd go to any length to humiliate her if given the chance. The divorce papers were scheduled to arrive within days. I planned to move in with Rebecca the following month, right after Jake and Tommy finished their final exams. I wanted to take them on a father-son trip to Yellowstone before making the transition official. But Victoria had one more evil card to play. While I was on that camping trip with my boys in Wyoming, staying at a lodge with spotty cell service, Victoria drove to Rebecca's apartment. She showed up sobbing at Rebecca's door and begged her to back off, claiming Rebecca was tearing apart her family, and that the children would suffer because of her interference. When guilt-tripping didn't work, Victoria played her cruelest card. She told Rebecca that I wasn't serious about the relationship and that Rebecca was just another fling for me, destined to fizzle out within a month. Victoria knew exactly how to play this game. She timed her visit perfectly, knowing I was unreachable in the mountains and that Rebecca wouldn't be able to contact me immediately. Any other woman might have gone crazy hearing herself called a fling, but Rebecca remained composed and waited for my return. She had the lodge's phone number but chose not to disturb our father-son time. That's one of the things I love most about Rebecca, she's secure and confident, even dealing with my complicated situation. When I returned home and learned about Victoria's malicious manipulation, I stormed to her bedroom and gave her the confrontation of her lifetime. I should have done this years earlier to put an end to her entitled behavior. Her manipulation had crossed every reasonable boundary, and nobody was going to tolerate it anymore. "This ends now," I told her. "I'm done being held hostage by your games." I moved out of the house immediately. Jake and Tommy had also decided to come live with me, but since Rebecca's place only had 2 bedrooms, I needed to find a larger house to accommodate everyone properly. Until then, the boys would stay with Victoria. Victoria threw every tantrum in her arsenal when I was packing my belongings. Guilt-tripping, yelling, gaslighting, sobbing, pleading, she even asked for another chance at our relationship. "Our relationship ended 10 years ago," I told her coldly. "We were just roommates and co-parents after that. The reality is that I've moved on from loving you. You mean nothing to me now. I love Rebecca and want to spend the rest of my life with her." When the divorce papers were officially delivered, Victoria tore them up in a dramatic fit. My lawyer had to send her a legal notice threatening to sue her for destroying a court document. Only then did she calm down and agree to sign. The divorce proceedings moved forward smoothly after that. I haven't checked on my soon-to-be ex-wife since then, maintaining contact only when necessary for the boys. When I pick up Jake and Tommy, I wait outside in my car, a used but reliable Ford Explorer I bought after moving out. They visit their mother every 2 weeks or whenever they choose. The past month has been hectic with finding a rental house in a good school district and moving our belongings, but it's been worth every moment of stress. We didn't tell Victoria about the boys' decision to live with me until after I'd secured our new place, a comfortable 3-bedroom ranch house in Littleton with a finished basement perfect for the boys to hang out with friends. We all knew Victoria would create chaos if she learned about it earlier, so we kept it quiet as long as possible. Jake even joked that they'd keep their bags packed and sneak out with me when Victoria wasn't around, but I decided to handle everything legally. I didn't want any more complications with that woman. According to our divorce agreement, we had to give each other 3 days' notice before taking the children for extended periods. So I went to the house and informed Victoria that the boys wanted to live with me, and I'd be picking them up in 3 days. As expected, she freaked out completely. Fortunately, she didn't resort to violence or property damage that would have actually helped our case, but instead chose the emotional manipulation route. Victoria hugged Jake and Tommy, cried dramatically, apologized for everything, and begged them not to abandon her. She did her best to emotionally manipulate them into staying, and initially succeeded with Tommy. He wavered and said he wanted to stay with Mama. Rebecca had warned me this might happen and advised me to be prepared for last-minute changes of heart. When Tommy called to tell me his decision, I simply said, "That's cool, buddy. Dad loves you no matter what." But Jake stuck firmly to his decision to move out. "I'll be ready," he told me over the phone. I don't know exactly what happened during those 3 days, but when I arrived to pick them up, both boys were packed and ready to go. I hugged them both tightly and brought them home to their new life. I didn't ask what changed Tommy's mind, it was already traumatic enough for them. Rebecca and I focused on making them comfortable in our house, involving them in decorating their rooms and letting them design everything according to their preferences. When the boys were leaving Victoria's house, I expected her to make one final desperate attempt to stop them, but she had seemingly given up by then. She just sat there crying quietly. She hugged Jake and Tommy tightly, told them how sorry she was about her behavior over the years, and assured them they were free to come back to Mama's whenever they wanted. Then she surprised me by asking, "William, do you have a minute for coffee?" Her request sounded genuinely humble, so I agreed. Her tone was remorseful as she began to apologize, and this time it didn't sound fake or manipulative. "I was delusional all these years, thinking you would never actually leave me," Victoria admitted. "When Rebecca came into your life, I didn't consider her a real threat. I thought she was just another fling that would fizzle out in a month or 2. I guess I took you for granted because of the security and stability you provided to me and the children, despite everything I had done to destroy our marriage. I didn't realize how mean and narcissistic I had become, and by the time I finally understood, it was too late." I smiled sadly and kept my emotions in check. I stood up to leave, and Victoria came forward to hug me goodbye. I hugged her back, our first embrace in 10 years. I can't fully explain how I felt about that moment, nor can I express exactly how I feel now after that final conversation with her. I'm neither happy nor sad about it, just numb. That's the only word that fits. After years of manipulation, emotional turmoil, and constant attempts to undermine my happiness, her apologies feel hollow in the face of all the damage she caused. But I've moved forward and created a brighter future for myself and my sons. Rebecca and I are planning our wedding for next spring, and Jake and Tommy will be walking her down the aisle alongside me. Victoria has signed the divorce papers, and our new life together is just beginning. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and finding genuine happiness after someone tried to destroy it. Victoria is crying alone in the ruins she made of our marriage, while I'm building something beautiful with a woman who truly loves and respects me. That's how this story ends, not with vengeance, but with victory over the chaos someone else created. And honestly, that feels like the most satisfying ending of all.